Welcome back. I'm Gila Ross, author of Living Beautifully and host of the Power podcast, where we share short, relatable ideas to impact and upgrade your everyday life. Here's the fun topic we're going to talk about tonight. How do we light Chanukah candles? How many do we light on the first night?
1.
How many on the second night? 2. Excellent. How many on the 8th night?
8.
Excellent. There's actually a debate and an argument in the Talmud about how to light candles. What often happens in the Talmud is you have rabbis arguing, and what they're arguing about the correct way to carry out Jewish law. And then they argue it out, and then at some point it's decided you either go according to this one or that one. It's based on the majority vote. So there was 2 schools of thought at one point in Jewish history called Hillel and Shammai. And Hillel and Shammai argued about a lot of different things. You'll hear a lot of times if you study the Talmud, Hillel said this, but Shammai says this. Hillel and Shammai had an argument about how to light the Hanukkah candles. Hillel, it says, you light one on day 1, and every day you increase until you get to the 8th day and you light 8. Shammai says, no. The way you light is you light 8 on the first night, and then you decrease so that the final night you're lighting 1. And obviously this is all +1 because we light a shamash as well. Who do we follow? Hillel. But what I wanted to spend some time today doing is trying to understand, number one, what was Shammai saying? What was the rationale behind his reasoning? Because if you think about it, imagine if on the first night of Hanukkah you lit 8 candles, and then the next night you only lit 7. It is a little bit anticlimactic. If you think about it, like, it's nice that we build on every night. It's exciting. It's 1, and it's 2, and then it's like finally day 8, and it usually comes very fast. Okay.
It's very exciting on the first night to have everything lit up, and then you slowly go down to the last day is 1, and that's quiet and sad and the end.
I want to ask you another question. And the second question is, number one, we're trying to figure out what was Shammai's reason. I think we can understand, that Hillel, you build up the excitement. What's the rationale behind decreasing? And the second question that I really want to ask is what's the point of disagreement between Hillel and Shammai? They are obviously arguing about this is the way we should do it, 8 going down to 1 or 1 going up to 8, but it's not just which way is the most exciting way to do it. There's something behind this that they're arguing about. And what I want to get to try and understand what is beneath the argument.
Like increase versus decrease? Like
what is the symbolism kind of thing?
Yeah.
If they're arguing about increasing versus decreasing, what's the rationale of both of their arguments, right? Why was Hillel saying this, and why was Shammai saying this?
So it was a miracle that it lasted 8 days. But on the other hand, the oil, even though it lasted, it was decreasing over those 8 days, right? Eventually it went out. I can see the logic behind both ways. One, the way we do it, we're increasing the light, and then the other way is it did last for 8 days, but eventually the oil ran out.
Okay, so if I understand what you're saying like Hillel is perhaps arguing you should increase the light because that's symbolic of what we're supposed to do in the world. We're supposed to increase our light in the world. And you're saying perhaps Shammai is arguing that we should decrease because it's a reflection of the miracle. Now, I don't know if the oil did go down or if it stayed the same. What was that? They each had a different argument based on a different perspective. The perspective of Hillel was something that made him realize this is the way we have to light, the way God wants us to light. And the perspective of Shammai was something that made him say, no, what was the correct way to light, the way God wants us to light is decrease. What they're doing is they're arguing for the sake of trying to find the truth. They're trying to find out what does God really say? And it's interesting because we're told actually that nowadays we keep Hillel, but when the Messiah comes, we're going to keep Shammai's. There's going to be some sort of flip. What's behind this perspective? In order to understand it, we kind of have to try and understand what a fire is for. What's a fire for? For heat to cook,
Light.
Light, the first point of a fire is to bring light into the world. We have electricity nowadays. Before you had electricity, you lit a candle or something in order to illuminate. There's a second place where fire is used. And for example, we see this on the altar, the mizbeach. What is it used for there?
Sanctify, purify.
To burn, to consume. What's interesting is that we see this reflected in the different mitzvahs. The Shabbos candles, why do we like Shabbat candles?
But we have light over Shoshan.
One of the reasons behind lighting Shabbat candles is because on Shabbat you're not allowed to use electricity. And if you can think about it, if you didn't use electricity and you didn't have light on before, you'd be sitting in the dark on Friday night. It's not conducive. You walk into a house and it's dark and you trip over someone's shoes and then you argue with the person that left the shoes. It's not conducive to a harmonious family meal. The idea is, in order to increase the harmony in the home, we light Shabbat candles so that there's illumination. And interestingly, because of this, you're allowed to, under certain circumstances, if a person, let's say, is in hospital and they can't light candles, they can do the mitzvah by switching on the light. They could do it by electricity, using an electric candles or a light to illuminate, because that's the purpose of the Shabbos candles, to illuminate. The Chanukah candles, what is their purpose? I'll give you a clue. Do you know if we're allowed to use electric menorahs on Chanukah? You can use them. Can we fulfill the mitzvah with electric menorahs?
If you have to, if there's a rule that you can't, like I was in a nursing home and they didn't allow them to have candles, so we did the electric menorah.
I don't know the specifics. It was on my list of questions to find out about that sort of situation. In general, you cannot fulfill the mitzvah of lighting Chanukah candles through using an electric menorah. What to do specifically if, let's say, someone's in hospital or whatever, or something, a case like that, I don't know the answer. I have to find that out. What's the purpose of the Chanukah candle? Is the Chanukah candle in order to illuminate, or is it in order to burn, to consume? What we say when we light the menorah is Haneres Halalu, these candles, Kodashim, they're holy. We don't have the permission to use them, only to look at them. Interestingly, that's why we light the shamash, so that in case we end up using the menorah in some way, we're benefiting from the shamash, the helper candle, and not the Chanukah candles. But where do we light the Chanukah candles?
Near the window.
Ideally, we light
Outside.
it near a window, not to light and illuminate the darkness of the thing, but it is to illuminate a message. It's to spread the miracle. Ideally, it should be somewhere where people in public can see it. It's also got the dual purpose of commemorating the other part of fire, which is to consume, which is why you have to use either a candle or oil. Because electricity, it doesn't burn down, but a candle or oil burns down. What do these two parts of fire symbolize? What is illumination? What does it symbolize? Throughout Jewish history, there's been two different types of anti-Semitism, right? There's anti-Semitism, which is targeting Jews, for example, in the Purim story, and it doesn't matter how religious or not you are. Haman wanted to wipe out all the Jews. Hitler was the same. Then there is a different type of anti-Semitism, which is like the anti-Semitism in the Chanukah story. It's not physical, but it's a spiritual. You can be alive.
That within Judaism.
Man's soul is the lamp of Hashem, illuminating the inner recesses of the heart. It's symbolizing that this fire, the purpose of fire, that is to illuminate, symbolic of the good that we do in the world. It's interesting because we use the same sort of language in English.
We survived the Greek and we beat them and we survived being Jewish.
That's what we're celebrating. But what we're trying to understand right now is what was the different perspective of Hillel and Shammai. So we're trying to understand what the Chanukah candles represent. So when we light the candles, Hillel and Shammai, lighting of the candles, whichever way you choose, whichever way would have won, you're commemorating that we survived. So the first kind of thing, we spoke about the candles kind of having two different uses. So the first use, to illuminate, is symbolic of the good that we do. Right? And we use the same language in English. to light up the world. We're not just talking about physically bringing a torch and lighting it up. We're also talking about increase good in the world. Do kindness, do study Torah, do mitzvahs, right? That increasing the good in the world. There's a second time that fire is kind of used symbolically. What's the symbolism here? What is the fire doing? It's getting rid of evil. Chanukah candles, is it commemorating that we increased goodness in this world? Or is it commemorating that we decreased evil in the world? Which one? Both. So that's why you have this dual purpose of the Chanukah candles. It's not just to illuminate, because there's a part of like, you're supposed to look at them, and they're supposed to publicize the miracle. That's symbolic of the fact of the celebration of the Maccabees. They held on to Torah, they held on to mitzvahs. They said, we're going to fight for what we believe is right. And there's a second aspect of it as well, which is the aspect of using something that burns down, is that when the Maccabees won the Greeks, they destroyed an evil force. Which is a whole nother question of what exactly was so evil about Greek, but that's a discussion for another time. So these are the two elements of the Chanukah story. There's the element of increasing good and the element of decreasing bad. What's interesting is that there is a phrase in the Torah that says, and it's addressing the question of, if someone wants to change, how do they, let's just say someone has a temper and they want to become more patient. How do they change? Like on a basic, to be conscious of it, yeah.
To
But what's-
practice it when
so-
they are in a situation that requires patience, and so they work on it at that moment.
So one of the elements of it is to practice the good. It's common, no matter what the good thing is you're trying to achieve. But there's another element as well that they have to do. If you think about someone who's working on not losing their temper, they have to practice patience. What else do they have to do?
Pray for help from God to be strong.
You have to not react right away. First, take a deep breath and not react.
Is to not react. On a very basic level, stop getting angry.
Take
So
a
it's
deep breath.
elements which is kind of said in the phrase sur meira, go away from bad, v'aseh tov, and do good, which if you think about it, the basic elements of trying to change, trying to become better. There's two parts of it. We have to stop doing the bad thing, and we have to focus, and we have to start doing good things. If you think about someone who is wants to become more generous, they have to stop being stingy, and they have to start giving. Any other aspect, any other change that you want to make, there's that two elements. You have to go away from the bad thing that you're doing, and you have to start doing good. Which aspect is more important to focus on? What I mean by that is, I think we all understand that you have to do both. If someone is working on being more patient, it's not good enough to just say, I'm going to work on being patient, but I'm not going to worry about getting angry like that. I won't worry about that right now. But you got to stop. You got to stop being
Diminishing the negative trait or habit is probably more crucial, because take the example of gossiping. Let's say someone gossips a lot and they want to. I don't think it's helpful to say to yourself, oh, I made 10 negative comments, so I need to make 12 positive comments. It's about diminishing the Lashon Hara.
Both are important. We all understand that both are important. You can only focus on one. One has to take priority. The focus should be on diminishing bad. And I hate the argument for it. And especially like if you're thinking about in relationships, let's say this person who's trying to work on not losing their temper, you could easily turn around to them and say that, stop getting angry. That's the most important thing. You're working on becoming more patient later, but stop the harm that you're doing. Does everyone agree with Ali? Beautiful, Jessica. I was worried that for a moment that we were going to have everyone agree.
Yeah.
Okay.
When you focus on stopping the bad behavior and you don't focus on the behavior that you want to substitute it, then it's very difficult to just stop the behavior. What are you replacing it with? If I'm trying to establish a new habit and stop an old habit, I focus on the new habit rather than stopping the old habit, because what you focus on expands. So if I'm focusing on the new habit, the old habit's just going to fall away. If I'm practicing my patience, it's going to be easier to not get angry because I'm practicing my patience.
What I heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that it's two different reasons.
Okay.
There's reason number one is that you have to replace it with something. It's just a strategy for stopping the bad. But then you said a completely different reason, which is what you focus on grows, which is an argument for focus on the good that will grow.
So I think there's balance. I think there's push and pull.
Okay,
Push and pull.
yes,
I am all about the push. Because I feel like good and light just creates more good and light, and then there's not even room for the other. So it's like a natural.
so Hillel and Shammai argued about this. So what was Shammai's response?
Avoid the bad.
What was Hillel's response to this
Increase the good.
question? Increase the good. What's going on here is Hillel is saying, focus on increasing the good. That's why every single night we add on, we increase the good. Shammai is saying, focus on decreasing the negative. So that's why we start with 8, a lot of negative, even though it's not symbolic of negative, but that's the idea behind it. And we decrease until you get to 1 and then 0. So this is the argument that they had. And we know who won. Why did he win? And I think, I'll tell you a story. There was a kid who was in high school and he was very smart, but completely unmotivated. By the time he came to graduate high school, he was in a religious high school, and by the time he came to graduate high school, he wasn't really interested in the Judaic studies anymore. So most teachers at that point will tell this kid, whatever, go to college and maybe take a summer trip to Israel, do a fun summer trip in Israel or something like that. What this guy's rabbi, his principal told him is he said to him, you're so smart, I think you could learn in the yeshiva in Lakewood.
It's like the king of yeshivas of the United States.
It's a pretty intense place.
Yeah.
It's not the type of place that you go if you want to study for half an hour and go party the rest of the day. Even if you want to study 6 hours and then party the rest of the day. It's a very intense place. The boy went. And what happened was, because the rabbi believed in him, and he thought to himself, wow, the rabbi thinks I'm capable of going to study in Lakewood, in the yeshiva. He applied himself and he started to get interested. And that grew. So again, it's that kind of idea that a lot of us were mentioning around the table, is that what we focus on grows. And not just what we focus on grows, but also when we feel good, we do better, right? So when we're focusing on, I have to increase the chesed that I do, I have to increase the, I have to light Shabbat candles, I have to increase this, I have to increase that, the other. We're noticing all the good we do, we feel better about ourselves, and we're motivated to do better. That's the essential difference between Hillel and Shammai. And we see this in a story of a convert. There was a potential convert who wanted to convert to Judaism. So he goes to Shammai and he says, can you convert me? So Shammai says, why do you want to convert to Judaism? So he says, because I want to become the high priest, the Kohen Gadol. Now, you cannot become the Kohen Gadol. You have to be born into the Kohen Gadol's family to inherit it. So what does Shammai tell him? And besides, like, it's kind of like if I were to go to immigration and they would ask me, like, why do you want to become American? And I'd be like, well, because I want to become the president of the United States. Right?
It's not possible.
It's not going to fly. Right? I want to change this country. If you want to be a part of us, great. But if you want to come in just for the prestige and whatever, so Shammai says, go. No, I'm not going to do that for you. He then goes to Hillel. And what he says to Hillel is, I want to convert. And Hillel says, why? And he says, because I want to become the high priest. He says, great. Let's start studying together. And they start studying together. And what happens is that as the guy studies, he recognizes, hold on a second, my motivation for converting to become the high priest is not a good motivation. And he switches. What's happening again here is Shammai saying, no, that's bad. And stop. What Hillel is saying, okay, let's work on the good, and the good will push away the bad. So let's just try and wrap this up. The essential disagreement between Hillel and Shammai is when a person's trying to change, do we have to move away from the bad, or do we have to increase the good? Now, the answer to that is you've got to do both, but you can only focus on one at a time. And Hillel's argument was it's more important to focus on the good, because for the reasons that we said, when you focus on the good, it increases. When you focus on the good and you notice the good that we're doing, we feel better about ourselves. When we feel better about ourselves, we're motivated to try harder. Shammai, on the other hand, said that no, what you have to do is you have to stop the harm. Now, it's possible, and it's interesting that we're told that when Messiah comes and the world will be different and will be closer to perfection, will follow Shammai's opinion. But for where we are nowadays, as human beings, and as fragile human beings, I would say, and very imperfect, what one is more important to focus on?
The good.
Increasing the good. And that's why we light according to Hillel, which is we add on a candle every single day, to symbolic of increasing good every day.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. I'd love to hear your feedback, and if you enjoyed this episode, you'll love my book, Living Beautifully: How to Bring Meaning, Joy, and Love into Your Life, based on the timeless wisdom of Pirkei Avot. And please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss out. Have a wonderful day.